Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True. It's Monday. It is Monday. And it's time for our weekly spin through some of the more notable stories to come out of the outdoor industry over the past week. I'm going to start today's show talking about the latest earnings report from Arc'teryx. And then we're going to talk about a new perk at Patagonia and even more brands that are heading to Switchback. But before we get to that, a few housekeeping items. Please follow and rate The Rock Fight wherever you're listening on any podcast app. Leave us that 5-star rating, then go over and do the same thing with Gear and Beer, the other podcast here on the Rock Fight Podcast Network. Also, send us your feedback by sending an email to myrockfight@gmail.com. And lastly, head over to rockfight.co and click join the mailing list so that you can get our weekly newsletter, News from the Front, in your inbox every Sunday morning. That's all the stuff we have going on at the Rock Fight. So right now, though, let's start the show. All right, we need to talk for a few minutes today about Arc'teryx. So the most common story I feel like going on in the outdoor industry right now, in business circles anyway, is the, ho-hum sales, and there's inventory issues stemming from the pandemic and PFAS regulation. Another topic you hear about on this is, Nike shitting the bed and finding themselves needing to right the ship because of a failed direct-to-consumer strategy. And then last week along comes Amer Sports and Arc'teryx and kicks everyone in the teeth with their Q2 earnings, built mostly on the back of DTC sales. At a high level, this seems to fly in the face of what everyone else is complaining about. So here's a few facts from that earnings report. It was covered in a variety of industry outlets, not hard to find. It was in SGB, it was in the Daily, it's all over the place. And I want to use this to kind of set the table for this conversation. So also remember that Amer, they also own Salomon, Wilson, Peak Performance, Atomic, and a few others. So overall, Amer Sports was up 16% year over year in the second quarter. Their D2C, direct-to-consumer business, was up 40%. Wholesale, this sounds familiar to a lot of other folks, it was only up 2%. Technical apparel, which includes Arc'teryx, up 34%. And Amer's outdoor performance category, so all their outdoor brands, grew 55% in their D2C channel, while wholesale numbers were overall slightly down. Again, this is broadly for Amer. Arc'teryx is part of those numbers. Now, here's kind of the big one, though. So Amer in the Americas and EMEA, which is Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, grew slightly overall. Asia, and more specifically Greater China, showed 54% growth in the second quarter, and I'll come back to that in a second. But to focus in on Arc'teryx specifically, so they opened up 13 new stores in the second quarter for a global total of 125 locations, with more planned for later this year. They revamped their footwear line, which now sits at 10% of the brand's total revenue, and that's up from 6% after launching Spring 24 effectively on their own. Before had kind of, for about the past decade, actually, Salomon had just sort of done that for them because they're also owned by Amer. Now, in this past spring, Arc'teryx opened a new design center in Portland, along with everybody else, and started doing their own thing with their shoes. So, all of these things, how do we sort of parse out takeaways from the numbers and what we're seeing here versus what we're also seeing in the rest of the outdoor industry? Now, talking about direct-to-consumer or people with their own retail shops, I'm the guy who just last week on the show talked about how I didn't like branded retail shops and think that more folks should look at the recent partnership between Black Diamond and retailer Wilderness Exchange as something to pursue. And by the way, more to come on that front because Don Bushy, who owns the Wilderness Exchange, he's coming on the Rock Fight probably later this week. It'll air next week. And while I've heard others in the past week talk about specific segments of this report, like footwear or apparel as the reason for success in this past quarter for Amer and Arc'teryx, I think there's something bigger happening here. And that's that Arc'teryx, honestly, guys, I look at them, they're not really an outdoor brand. Not in the same sense that we consider a lot of the brands that we talk about in the outdoor space. Like, of course, on a basic level, yes, Arc'teryx is an outdoor brand. They make functional products that can enable you in your outdoor pursuits.
How can you say that, Colin? How can you say that?
I have a few. We all have a few Arc'teryx pieces, but I mean, when you really see it out in the wild, like when is a backpacking trip or a climbing trip truly started with, hey man, we got to go to the Arc'teryx store?
They have a raptor fossil as a logo. How could they
it's a pretty good logo.
Not be an outdoor brand?
They are an outdoor brand.
Okay.
And they've earned their reputation as a higher end maker of technical goods. These are beautifully constructed products, but they also attract an audience way beyond dirtbag outdoorsy folks. And due to their functionality, they have to be taken seriously in pure outdoor circles, because we can absolutely sub out any other apparel brand you have in your gear closet for Arc'teryx stuff, and it will perform as well. And we all, like I said, we all have that one or two pieces of gear from Arc'teryx, or pieces of apparel from Arc'teryx. That said, and resort skiing aside, how often do you come across someone on trail to kitted out like head to toe in Arc'teryx stuff? And anecdotally, I can't think of any time that has happened. I don't often see them. When I talk to my friends about what they're going to do, rarely do they talk about, oh, I have this Arc'teryx, the Arc'teryx stuff I'm going to wear. And I really think that it's in part because Arc'teryx is the embodiment of the poser portion of brands that we talk about the most in the outdoors, about who buys and wears their stuff. But no one ever talks about them that way because they've been able to remove themselves from that conversation due to how they've shepherded their brand and the strategic decisions they've made along the way. In talking with some folks I know on the specialty retail side of things, not only is Arc'teryx focused on building their DTC business, which they've been very open about, but they also make it kind of hard to work with them if you are a wholesale account. If you look at the Find the Store feature on Arc'teryx's website, most of their wholesale dealers in the U.S. are places like Scheels and REI. There are independent shops. They're mostly clothing stores or ski shops. And this seems to be all by design, right? So Arc'teryx is usually mentioned in the same breath as the North Face or Patagonia or Marmot or whoever. I believe they should be mentioned more with a brand like Lululemon. Because when you start looking at it on a basic level, Lulu also has some wholesale distribution, mostly direct distribution. The most notable places Lulu sells are things like, and on the wholesale side, are Gazelle Sports in Michigan. I actually found some Lulu products on Walmart's website, so they do put some things out there in other places, but mostly it's their own shops and their web store. Arc'teryx focuses their wholesale and ski shops where higher price points are expected, while according to Lulu's website, they focus on yoga and Pilates gyms and studios. And I even look at the way they're both handling footwear and see overlap there, right? Lulu's new footwear line is complementary to their fans and their apparel line. Should we expect to see the Lulu Beyond Feel running shoe show up en masse at 5Ks all over the place? No, I don't think so. But Lulu fans can now go and complete their ensemble from head to toe. Arc'teryx has been around, had footwear much longer than Lulu, but in reality, it's only just getting going because for the better part of the past decade, it has been managed by Salomon. And this newly revamped line of shoes gives them an aesthetic and a brand story that is more Arc'teryx. And I think that's one reason for the improved sales performance. But you can't look past the fact that while, they're available in REI, they're going to be mainly sold to Arc'teryx superfans in Arc'teryx stores. But back to this being by design, right? If you go back to when Arc'teryx was acquired by Amer in 2005, at that time it was more of a true outdoor competitor to the existing outdoor brands, sort of playing an early 2000s version of what Mountain Hardwear was in the 1990s to the outdoor industry. Then Amer gets in there, they acquire the brand, and they almost immediately start to pivot Arc'teryx towards a more urban audience while keeping its trail-based credibility. And to me, the linchpin of all of this, as I was kind of doing some research looking at this topic and what's going on at Arc'teryx, is Arc'teryx's CEO, Stuart Haselton, whose prior experience before taking on the top job at Arc'teryx in 2021 were brands like Saks Fifth Avenue and J. Crew, where he served as CFO. And then after that, he ended up at Lululemon, where he served as COO and CFO. Oh, and by the way, Lulu founder Chip Wilson, turns out, according to an Arc'teryx profile in Forbes that came out this past spring, he's also a major investor in Amer Sports. So when we're having outdoor industry conversations about brands and inventory position and who's opening stores and who's doing well at wholesale and who's legit and whatnot, Arc'teryx isn't part of that from my purview. Reading all these things, they're a different animal altogether. They're doing things differently than others in our space because they're not really an outdoor brand. They're more of a fashion brand who's kept that outdoor cred. That doesn't mean we can't learn from their success. And the last thing I want to point to here is what they are doing in China, like I referenced at the beginning. In the SGB article covering their second quarter earnings, Amer CEO James Zhang points out that the premium sports and outdoor market in China is one of the fastest growing consumer segments that is attracting a wider array of participants, basically younger and more female, than in other regions. Zhang also points out that it is competitive there on the brand front, and that specialized brands with a, quote, deep expertise and high quality and performance, end quote, resonate with Chinese shoppers. I believe the summary here is that all of this is just perfectly executed brand strategy. Arc'teryx has never discounted their brand. They've leaned into the higher price points and thus higher margins, allowing for more flexibility when it comes to developing their D2C strategy. They've maintained their outdoor authenticity while also removing themselves from the outdoor status quo that every other major outdoor brand has to deal with. And because of this, during a time when most outdoor brands are dealing with North American and European headwinds, Arc'teryx has been able to enter the Chinese marketplace to the tune of big profits. And lastly, Amer looks to be pursuing kind of a similar path with Salomon. In the same earnings report as Arc'teryx, Amer announced that they opened 27 Salomon shops in Q2 in China, bringing their global store count to 136, and Salomon making similar financial gains as Arc'teryx. So I want to bring our main brand guy, producer Dave, now. Is this just a masterclass of strong branding playing off, of developing a playbook and sticking to it? How do you, when you hear all these sort of, I'm tying this together, Dave, like, do you see where I'm going with this? What's your response to this?
I do see where you're going with it. And I think it does make sense. I don't know if I would make such the controversial notion that they are no longer an outdoor brand. They are a new kind of outdoor brand for sure.
Well, that's more what I mean, right?
And again, I think this is authenticity gets tossed around a lot. But it really is the get out of jail free card, when in a sense it allows you to try to move into other spaces as long as you can keep that piece legitimate. It's gonna help you. They started as a premium brand. I think they started as a harness, didn't they? Very much like
I thought it was the apparel, the hard shell and soft shell apparel is what they became known for.
I think it started before that. Like even go back into the 80s. Like in the late 80s, I think they were a harness. I could be wrong. What was it? Like Rock Solid or something was the name of the brand, I think, before they switched to Arc'teryx. But so you have this story there. But even then, that was a kind of a technical play with that. And then you're right. They moved immediately into the soft goods and the Gore-Tex and hitting upon. With a brand like Arc'teryx, their design language that they came upon early, that minimalist, that very sharp line, really, I would say, expressed the idea of what a premium outdoor brand would look like. It just was such a departure from the kind of the classic style, the one that, let's say, Patagonia had set. And that other brands in North Face had followed and things like that. And the fact that it wasn't a puffy that kind of led with. It was this Gore-Tex waterproof jacket, right? And the colorations, it wasn't just a black. It was a certain kind of black and the grays. And like I said, those lines, those minimalist lines.
Yeah, the fit, right? The urban pivot, learning that was really almost a play since the mid-2000s of like, we are going there. That's where no one else is going. We weren't, it wasn't even on our radar yet. We were talking a little bit of Timberland, but even then it was considered weird that you want to do that.
And to your point, it really lent itself to the urban market. And wanted more style. It lent itself to the premium ski side of the equation. So you really kind of triangulated a lot of different demographic groups with that type of aesthetic that made it open and available while they continued their, what I would say, legitimate course as an outdoor brand, building that through legitimate
when I say
use.
They're not... Well, I'm just saying, like they've almost. Well, that's what I was kind of getting at. They've removed themselves from the sort of the politics and the typical issues of the outdoor industry. Maybe that's what I mean. Yes, of course, they are an outdoor brand. Yeah. But it's like I don't look at them the same way I look at the other brand. I don't kind of include them in the conversation where we're talking about general outdoor apparel like you would find at an REI. Right. And I think another thing too about this. We haven't even touched on, they've always had manufacturing capabilities. They've always produced in-house to a certain degree. Obviously, they don't produce everything in-house because they couldn't. They're a billion-dollar brand. Sure. At the same time, that creates flexibility. I'm sure that shortens lead times in a lot of ways because they're making their own stuff. They're making samples. Their Rebird program has become very well known for secondhand and how they're approaching the sort of, the sort of kind of the worn wear path that Patagonia has done. Mm-hmm. All of those things, if you do well, it adds margin. It adds flexibility. It adds, it's a lot of the problems that other brands would face if they said, hey, we want to go tackle China. They don't have those same problems.
Well, no, but, tackling China also helps when you're acquired by a behemoth Chinese sports brand of Anta, right? Amer is the Finnish group that bought them in 2015. Anta is the Chinese billionaire company that bought Amer. That's kind of the secret. They own like a 48% share in Amer. And your buddy Chip, as you were talking about, owns something like 20%. So he's the second largest shareholder.
I really don't want to be affiliated as like Chip
yeah.
Wilson's buddy, you know?
He didn't return your call, and you're holding it against him.
Exactly.
But no, look. So when they bought the brand, for sure, there was the upside. Was you have this already installed premium brand that probably has really more of a scale issue to achieving that market, and so how can they help that and let Arc'teryx be Arc'teryx as you open up to it. And you're seeing now the fruit of that after a few years, pandemic getting in the way of it. But to your point, they're sticking to their strategy of premium look, premium material. The Valiance line, while never going to be huge, it's such a perfect expression of what that brand, what that side of the brand can be. And so I think when you've got those things rolling together, it makes sense that that's what you're seeing now is the... like I said, seeing all that come together. It makes sense. Look, I want to go back, just that design. It's so hard to create a product that embodies the positioning of a brand so well. And in a sense, they almost created the category of tech wear and Gorp core, right? They didn't, of course, by themselves, but it's something you can point to. That look is so distinctive as an Arc'teryx piece. You can tell it from across the hall, from across the trail. It's like you can see it coming. And it just stands for that idea of simplicity and premiumness that, look, there'll always be a place for the cast iron skillet and the Pendleton or the Danner. Gorp Core will always have its classics. But I think the Arc'teryx silhouette of those initial jackets like the Alpha SV, the Beta AR, things like that really just have defined that movement. And so once they've moved into that space, they can really go anywhere, right? They can really go anywhere.
I mean, you could say, and I'm kind of intimating that this has been the plan all along. And obviously, I think there is probably a lot of, we talked about before we hit record about how there's a little bit of crossover here with Apple. And it was just the way, one of the reasons they've sort of been able to maintain this authenticity in the outdoor space while not sort of being involved in the outdoors like some of the other brands. I feel like that's a very Apple move. Like we're not discounting. We're just doing our thing, man. No, we're premium. This is our thing. We're just over here doing our thing. Mm-hmm. So I think there's something to be said for the way they have laid it out. At the same time, though, are there any real learnings that another brand could take away? Because some of this is definitely, there's brand strategy, but then there's the acquisition piece. And you look at, Nike struggles with direct consumer. I'm sure like someone like a Matt Powell could sit here and break down the exact differences between like what Arc'teryx is doing with direct to consumer and what Nike did and why it's different. But if you're a brand paying attention, I don't know if there's an obvious we should focus on this because that's what's working for them. It feels like a lot of little things paying off.
Yeah, agreed. And again, I keep going back to I'm going to keep Arc'teryx pieces for the most part have a sensibility to do them that is distinctive. You talked about Apple's a great example of that in the sense that I think I mentioned it's the Johnny Ive school of design, minimalist to a point where it hurts. There is a sleekness to that. There is a simplicity of function where I don't need a big instruction book to tell me how my jacket fits and works, and there's ties aren't all over the place. It just forms to the body and fits, and so there's a reason, too, that becomes more popular and sells over time. People, start to equate that with a sense of premium status, and they're gonna be attracted to it.
You're absolutely right about that. I mean, the thing is, like, going back to thinking about our Polar Tech days, and plenty of times when you saw, the same fabric being deployed by multiple brands, and the Arc'teryx piece would just look better. There's this, the exact same performance. It's going to do the exact same thing, but there was just a level up of how they deployed the fabrics. And the one Arc'teryx piece that I wear regularly is kind of a mid-layer, kind of like a light jacket. It's got it has hard face on the front. It's not power grid, but it's a knit on the inside. It's great, but I mean, it's the fit of that jacket more than anything else that makes me continue to wear it, even though it's kind of starting to get pilled and beat up, 10 years on. So there is just a little. That's you can't. I mean, this is what Patagonia deserves credit for too. Like, for all, like, sometimes I'll bitch about Patagonia with everything. Their design, their fit, the way they kind of put things together, and when you put these good garments on, you just want to wear them.
Yep.
And it's just like, yep, I want to wear this all the time now.
Yep.
And that is a underrated thing, I feel like, with a lot of these brands that we talk about.
Right. Beautiful engineering is underrated.
Are you intentionally not saying X at the end of Arc'teryx? You're saying Arc'teryx.
I refuse the X. Yeah, that Elon Musk has soiled that letter for me forever. I will not use it.
All right, guys, it's time. Time for our weekly segment to be sure that you're getting more out of the outdoors. It's time for More with Thermore. All right, so the weather here in Southern California has been getting in that late summer sweet spot, just hot enough to make it worth going to the beach during the day, but you can tell that summer is ending with the way we're feeling in the mornings and the evenings. Producer Dave was just telling me it's getting rainy already in the Pacific Northwest. It's a little early for that day. We're still August. But I got to tell you, I'm not much of a cold weather person anymore, but I absolutely cannot wait to try my new Carbon Flurry Alfresco Parka that is loaded with Thermore Eco Down. And if you're asking what Eco Down is, well, let me tell you. Thermore's Eco Down is the sustainable alternative to down feathers, made from 100% post-consumer plastic bottles using Eco Down in a cold weather jacket, promotes circularity. And for all the brand designers and developers in the outdoor industry that I know listen to this show, Eco Down doesn't require downproof fabrics to be used in your garment, and it has a super high warmth to weight ratio and that lovely soft hand feel. So if you're looking for a new warm coat this winter, head to carbon.com, that's carbon with a K, and get yourself a Flurry Alfresco so we could be twinsies together. And if you're an outdoor brand and looking for the best solution for that new garment you're designing, head to thermore.com and check out Thermore's Eco Down. Because whether it's making amazing new garments or staying warm and safe out on the trail, you can do more with Thermore.
That was very nice, Colin.
Thank you. Try. All right, let's run through a couple of other headlines that come out of the outdoor industry over the past week. Starting with, this is a follow-up to a episode of the Rock Fight that ran last week when Christina Henderson was on to talk about some other updates that come out of the Running Event and Switchback, because a couple of days after that, a press release came out highlighting some other brands that will be attending both this fall's event as well as next spring's event. So we talked about on the show with Christina that Patagonia and Lululemon had been announced as attending this fall's event. Then a couple of days later, they put out that Outdoor Research, Keen, Black Diamond, Loa, Prana, and Smartwool would all be coming back to the Running Event / Switchback and showing up for the first time, as we mentioned, Patagonia, Lululemon, Toad & Company, Nick Wax, Olakai, and Teva are all going to be there for the first time. And Keen went as far to say that they're committed to next year's Switchback Spring, which I believe makes them the first brand to announce they'll be heading to Nashville next June. Dave, I'm starting to feel like we either underestimated how much brands want to attend these shows, and then, perhaps by committing to a standalone outdoor show along with the clout that the running event has, that sort of opened the door for many of these legacy outdoor brands to show up. I mean, you were on the conversation with Christina last week. I mean, you feel like that's kind of where this is headed? Like, people are like, okay, it's time to get back to something?
Well, I would hope so. I do hope so that is the case. I mean, look, we've been without a central location for a while. I could definitely see the pendulum switching back. I also, like I said, I do not discount the importance of the regional aspect of having a Eastern-centric way station.
Yeah,
for these
you've been
brands.
on this one. You're really big on this.
I think that's a big deal. I think it's been overlooked for a long time in that same way. And having just we're going to be fragmented, so that's already been we've already kind of accepted that. So there's not going to be a single middle of the country for everyone kind of approach. So if we can kind of break it up a little bit between our needs, that might be that might be the way to do it. And like you said, the pull of the running event, I think, is a great start for them. So we'll have to see, but that's just my guess for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we talk a lot about it on this show, and just for our listeners to know, we're in talks with both Outdoor Retailer and Switchback and the Running Event to attend both shows and kind of give you the news from the ground this fall. Hopefully that all comes together. We'll keep you posted as that develops. But yeah, I don't know. Those are some heavy hitter names we haven't seen at trade shows in a while, or maybe they've been there. We just haven't.
News from the ground.
We haven't seen.
Is absolutely. Maybe we should title the segment.
Did I say news from the ground?
Yeah, we should title the segment "Underfoot." Like that's exactly where we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Underfoot works.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Exactly.
I don't
That's
know what kind of
amazing.
vantage point that is, but man, this is where we belong. Our people. Underfoot.
We are underfoot.
That's right.
So lastly today, the Daily reported last week that Patagonia will close its stores, warehouses, and offices on October 29th to allow their employees to go vote. October 29th is National Vote Early Day, and all Patagonia employees will get a paid day off to get out there and vote and volunteer. You know, I want to make sure, I like to make sure that we don't get all, high on Patagonia too much around here. I tend to be that voice in the room. But this is another example of just something that they're doing that we can get behind, along with all the other things that they do that we can all get behind. And I think, this is something that probably everybody should be doing.
I was going to say other companies, brands, if you're listening, this one's an easy one. It fits into, REI's opt-out campaign of Black Friday. That similar kind of, that's a real easy one for folks to make a great statement with and actually have a meaningful effect on your workforce. So
I'm gonna zag on opt-out side. We're 10 years in. Like, come on, man! I worked retail. Like, you work Black Friday. It's part of the deal. That's what you close on Thanksgiving. But come on, Friday you got to go to work.
I actually don't care what day it is, but the idea of kind of paid time to go in and participate in the aspiration that you're selling, that's a pretty important thing. Maybe we should
I
be
agree
thinking
with that.
about
I'm just kidding.
Right.
But I do think if you gave me to choose between both, everybody should get a day off to go vote. I mean, you see the stupid lines and stuff like that on the news where it's like these people have to wait in line to go vote because other local governments are trying to make it hard or whatever it is. Right. Drives me insane. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. And then here I am. I just filled out the ballot 3 weeks before the election and mailed it in, and I get a text message saying, "Hey, we got your ballot. Thanks."
That's right.
Why is this not everywhere?
Right.
Why are we not all doing it this way? So simple.
Right. Not easy is the point.
It seems to be. And obviously, this is a pretty consequential election. So good for you, Patagonia.
Yep.
So last thing for today is our parting shot. And I'm taking my parting shot. And I'm aiming it right at Costco. And by extension, some high sobriety, which, by the way, that drives me crazy. I never know how to say high snobiety. Snobiety.
Yes.
So Costco has a $30 knockoff Hoka that they're selling. Apparently, this is all the rage with the Costco heads. But a $30 shoe coming to market is making that shoe has single-handedly knocked a few years off the time we have left before we're all dead thanks to extreme heat. I mean, making a $30 shoe, knowing what goes into that, and they're calling it a knockoff Hoka. Hoka's what's a typical Hoka, $150? But number one, screw you, Costco, for doing that. Number two is high snobiety. They kind of are making fun of it, but I get at least a little pebble throw at them for not condemning that this piece of shit was actually made. They should just be all over that. But I don't know. Did you see this shoe?
Could you put a price on comfort, Colin? Can you really put a price on comfort?
I'd rather.
In fact,
put it this way.
Actually, they're two.
I'd rather buy a pair of Crocs.
It's $2 for $30, or for $60. So they had some kind of crazy price deal going on. Now, here's my question for you. So Costco, we all know Costco does their own Kirkland brand. It's about 25% of their total sales is Kirkland. So they're selling a lot of Kirkland. And we also know that they don't make much of their Kirkland products. In fact, the very same companies make those products for Kirkland. So the question we have to ask, is Deckers involved in this shoe?
Is this where Anu's going to go?
Is this the Anu?
Super shoe ends
and
up.
If Deckers isn't involved on this shoe, somebody speak up and tell us. We will not propagate
that's hilarious.
We will not propagate this false story. But until then, I have reason to believe that maybe it's a Noka, right, or something like that, or a Foca would probably be a better way. But
Anu was just to knock us off the scent, but actually they're making shoes for Costco.
Look, there is a fairly lively Reddit threads about this shoe. Some people love it, right? I mean, the cost of it, the cushion of it. Some great comments. One person wondered if it came with cargo shorts, which I thought was fantastic.
That's amazing.
Right,
that person wins.
I did too. And also the idea that this just gets you one step closer to spiritual discovery because you have completely parked your ego at the door and you have just moved right into selflessness and comfort. So
I love that.
I do too. I think so. But so that's the question of where does this shoe really come from?
What's your parting shot?
My parting shot, Colin, I'm taking aim squarely at honeybees this week.
Like, is that a brand?
Honeybees? No, I mean the actual species of honeybees. Okay.
You mean
Look,
honeybees?
yeah, I've got a
Like
beef.
collecting pollen, making honey.
I have a beef with honeybees, right? So, look, for the last...
I think honeybees have a beef with us.
Maybe, but maybe it's deserved. We know, for the last, I don't know, has it 10 years, 15 years, we've been hearing about is hive collapse. All we've been hearing about is the honeybees, the pollinators are going away, and they're dying off, and the cataclysm it's going to cause in our food supply and our health.
And bad Wahlberg and M. Night Shyamalan movies.
Right, and they're just these, and in fact, I know that there are even TikTokers with these lovely, soft voices, how they're saving the bees. And they're these docile creatures that just, they have all over her hand, and they don't sting her, and they move into their hives, and it's all so lovely and peaceful. And then I find out that they have to close Joshua Tree because of aggressive honeybees, not wasps, not hornets, not those bastards that'll sting you for no reason or go.
It was the honeybees that made me like wait, what? Like, have you said
it's not even Africanized honeybees or whatever those mutated things that are going to cross the border and they're going to kill us every 10 years. No, these are just aggressive honeybees, almost like they're a little drunk and angry, possibly. But they've had to close the Cottonwood Visitor Center. They've had to close trails. We don't know when they're going to open again. So I'm thinking that all of this just kind of, bee washing to make these guys look more docile than they really are is really starting to now reveal itself to not be true. And they're just angry and they sting. So
are bees like now just like entitled children? We've just given them too much. Like then they just feel like, no, we're going to move in here now.
Honestly,
like this is where we're going to live now.
I think they just had a really good PR agency and were able to spin this around. I mean, there's a time when the mafia was helping children, things like that. I mean, look, Big Pharma, it's good for you. No, it's not. It's not.
But they are actually coming back, you said, huh?
I believe they are. I believe that there are areas where we are seeing some recovery. Now, I don't know the overall health.
And I
don't want to. I don't want to definitely minimize too much the need for a good, healthy pollinator population for sure. But
the only thing that can close in national park now is a government shutdown and honeybees. Apparently, is that kind of where we are? Is that where we're at?
It does seem like that might be aggressive bees and do nothing. Congress, right?
All right. Well, if you want to sponsor the parting shot, come on. We got hot takes. Anybody? Does any honey company want to sponsor the parting shot segment of this podcast? All right, everybody. The Rock Flight's a production of Rock Flight LLC. Our producer today, you heard him. He's got a beef with honeybees. We're excited you were here. We gave you a lot of grief last week. You missed a couple episodes. We're like, where's producer Dave? He's not here. But he's here today. David Karstad, you heard him there. Art direction, as always, provided by the incomparable Sarah Gensert. I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. And here to take us out is Krista Makes. He's going to sing the Rock Fight song. You know you love it. You guys wait till the end. You listen to the whole thing and you listen to the song. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters.